Stop being so available. That is the problem. Not your talent, not your effort, not the quality of what you bring. The problem is that you are giving it away constantly to everyone at all times without friction, without cost, without anyone having to want it first. And the result is that nobody values it. Not because they are ungrateful, not because you are not enough, because you have violated the most fundamental law of human psychology. The law that says value and availability move in opposite directions, always, without exception. In every relationship, every social environment, every professional dynamic that has ever existed between human beings. The more available something is, the less it is valued. The less available something is, the more it is desired. This is not philosophy. This is neurology. This is the operating system of every human brain that has ever assessed the worth of something in the social world. And you have been working directly against it your entire life. You have been present when you should have been absent, available when you should have been unreachable, explaining yourself when you should have said nothing, staying when you should have left, responding immediately when you should have let the silence build, giving access when access should have been earned. And the people who received all of this presence, all of this availability, all of this generous open-door version of yourself, responded not with increased appreciation but with decreased regard. Not because they are bad people, because their brains processed you the way every brain processes constant stimulation. They habituated. They moved you from signal to background, from something that requires a conscious response to something that is simply assumed to be there. You became furniture, not because you are not extraordinary, because you gave yourself like something ordinary. This ends now, and here is exactly how. The first thing you need to understand is what your presence is actually worth when it is genuinely scarce. Think about the people in your life whose time feels like an event, not a given, not something you simply have access to whenever you want it. An event, something you look forward to, something you prepare for slightly, something that, when it arrives, has a different quality of aliveness than the time you spend with people who are always available. You are already feeling what scarcity does to value. You experience it every time you are in the presence of someone whose presence feels like something that had to be earned rather than something that was simply on offer. The conversation is better. The connection is sharper. The experience of being with them lands differently than it does with people who are always there because they always have nowhere else to be. That person is not more interesting than you. They are not more intelligent. They are not more deserving of the quality of attention they receive. They simply understand something you are only beginning to understand, that the value of your presence is a function of its scarcity. And scarcity is not manufactured. It is the natural consequence of a life that is genuinely full. Now let us talk about what absence actually does in the minds of the people you leave. When you are present, people respond to the real you, the specific, bounded, finite version of you that is physically in the room, your actual words, your actual energy, your actual behavior, all of which has limits, all of which includes the ordinary moments alongside the extraordinary ones. When you are absent, people respond to the imagined you, and the imagined you has no limits. The imagination takes the best version of you it has access to and runs it forward without the corrective friction of your continued presence. It fills the gaps with whatever that person most wants to find there. It expands you into the space your absence created. This is why leaving a conversation at its peak is one of the most powerful social moves available to you. The peak is the last data point. The peak becomes the memory. The memory becomes what they carry into every subsequent moment before they see you again. And what they carry is the best version of you, preserved in amber by the absence that followed it, uncorrected by the diminishing returns that continued presence would have produced. You have been staying past the peak your entire life, staying until the conversation ran out of energy, until the evening wound down, until there was nothing left to give, and you have been wondering why you are not remembered the way you deserve to be remembered. You are remembered accurately. You are remembered as someone who was there when the energy was high, and there when it was low, and there when it was exhausted, and there when there was nothing left worth being there for. Leave at the peak, every time, without exception. This is not a social trick. It is the discipline of someone who understands that they are the author of how they are remembered. And the last chapter is the chapter that defines the book. Now the question of power. Every relationship has a structure, an architecture of who pursues and who receives pursuit, who initiates and who responds, who adjusts their availability around the other person, and who simply exists in their own rhythm and allows the other person to find access within it. This architecture is not always visible. It is never discussed, but it is felt by everyone in the relationship, and it determines, more than any other single factor, who holds the greater influence in the dynamic. The person who is more available holds less power, not because availability is weakness in any moral sense, because availability signals need, and need signals that the relationship is more important to you than it is to them. And the person for whom the relationship is less important holds the leverage. This is uncomfortable to acknowledge, because you do not want to think of your relationships in terms of leverage. You want to think of them as mutual and equal and driven by genuine affection that has nothing to do with who needs whom more. And in the best relationships, the healthiest ones, the ones built on real trust and real reciprocity, this is closer to true. But even in those relationships, your availability is a signal. And the signal you are sending with constant availability is a signal that diminishes you in ways you cannot see, because you are too close to your own behavior to read its effect. The person who is genuinely hard to reach because they are genuinely invested in their own life is not playing games. They are telling the truth about their priorities. And the truth about their priorities, communicated through the natural scarcity of their time, produces in the people around them the specific form of regard that every human being deserves but most never receive, because they give themselves away before the regard has a chance to develop. Let us talk about what happens when you stop explaining your absence. Every time you are unavailable and feel the pull to explain why, you are choosing performance over reality. You are filling the space your absence was supposed to create. You are answering the question before the question has produced the desire that the unanswered question was supposed to generate. Your absence does not require justification. You have priorities. You have a life. You have something you are building that requires your time and cannot be interrupted every time someone else wants access to you. The specifics of this are yours. They belong to your interior life and your private calendar and the personal architecture of your days. They are not owed to the people whose access to you is being limited by the reality of your actual commitments. When you stop explaining, two things happen simultaneously. The mystery of your life, the specific quality of a person who is clearly elsewhere and clearly engaged, and clearly not sitting in available silence waiting to be reached, begins to work. And the people who require explanation for every exercise of your own time reveal themselves as people who have confused your availability with obligation. Both of these outcomes serve you. The people who are worth having in your life will respect the unexplained boundary. They will not require the accounting. They will understand that you have a life that extends beyond their access to it, and they will find this, if they are healthy, attractive rather than threatening. Because people with full lives of their own recognize and respect a full life in others. They do not compete with it. They are drawn to it. Now let us go into the practical architecture of how you actually live this. The first thing is to build something that genuinely fills your time. This is not about manufacturing absence. It is about creating the conditions in which absence is the natural result of genuine engagement. The work you have been putting off, the skill you have been meaning to develop, the creative project that has been living in the margins of your life, waiting for you to stop filling your time with availability and give it the attention it requires. When your time is genuinely full, the absence takes care of itself. You are not available because you are actually doing something, not performing busyness, not managing the perception of a full life, actually living one. And the quality of that genuine engagement comes through in every interaction you do have. The person who is building something is different in every room they enter than the person who has nothing but time for the rooms they are in. The fullness shows. The direction shows. The sense of a life that has somewhere to be and something to become shows in a way that no performance of it can replicate. The second thing is to stop being the one who always reaches out first. Map your relationships honestly. Look at the last 10 initiations in each one. Who sent the first message? Who suggested the meeting? Who bridged the distance most recently? If the answer is consistently you have the architecture of pursuit rather than reciprocity. And pursuit, when it is always in one direction, is not connection. It is a demonstration of unequal investment. Stop initiating for a defined period in the relationships where the initiation is always yours, not as punishment, not as a test you will announce to the other person, simply as an experiment in allowing the natural gravity of genuine interest to reveal itself. The relationships in which the other person reaches out when you stop reaching are the relationships that have actual reciprocal energy. The relationships in which your silence is met with silence are telling you something about the real nature of those relationships that your constant initiation was preventing you from seeing. This information is not pleasant in every case. Some relationships will not survive the withdrawal of your constant effort, and the temptation will be to restore the effort to restore the relationship. Resist it. A relationship that only exists because of your continuous pursuit is not actually a relationship. It is a consumption of your energy by someone who has accepted your presence without investing in it. Letting it reveal itself as what it is does not destroy it. It simply makes visible what it already was. The third thing is to master the early exit. In every gathering, every social event, every professional function, every dinner that has peaked and is now in its long declining phase, train yourself to leave before you feel ready to leave, before the occasion gives you permission to leave, before the social obligation of staying until a natural conclusion has been fully discharged. Leave while the conversation is still alive, while the energy is still present, while people are still glad you are there rather than simply accustomed to your presence. The moment you identify the peak, that is your exit cue, not immediately after the peak in a way that is abrupt and conspicuous, but within a short interval of the peak that allows the transition to be smooth and the memory of the peak to be the defining impression. The exit itself matters. Do not apologize for leaving. Do not over-explain. Do not make the departure into an event of its own that replaces the natural ending with a performed one. Simply leave with warmth, with the specific brevity of someone who has somewhere to be that is not here, and allow the room to do what the room will do with your absence. What the room will do with your absence is the whole point. What the room will do is notice it, not immediately, but in the minutes and hours after your departure, in the conversations that turn toward the people who are no longer present, in the specific quality of attention that absence commands that presence never quite achieves. The fourth thing is to respond at your own pace, rather than at the pace of expectation. Immediate response has become the default expectation of contemporary life, and it has destroyed the power of communication in the process. When every message receives a response within minutes, every response carries the weight of something produced in minutes. When a response takes days and arrives considered and complete, it carries the weight of something that was given actual attention. You are allowed to take time with your responses, not to manufacture significance through delay, but because the actual quality of your response improves when you give it the time it deserves. Because the person on the other end of a considered response receives something different than the person on the other end of an immediate one. They receive evidence that their communication was worth thinking about, worth sitting with, worth the interval between receipt and reply. This retraining of expectations is not comfortable at first. People who are accustomed to your immediacy will notice the change. Some will ask if something is wrong. The answer is that nothing is wrong. Everything is finally right. You are no longer treating every incoming communication as an emergency requiring immediate deployment of your attention. You are treating your attention as the finite, valuable, irreplaceable resource that it actually is, and directing it toward the things that have earned it in the order that your own priorities determine. The fifth thing is the hardest and the most important. It is the internal shift that makes everything else genuine rather than performed. You have to actually believe that your time is valuable. Not as an affirmation, not as something you tell yourself to feel better, as a fact that you have assembled from honest evidence. The evidence of what you have built, what you are building, what you know, what you can do, what you have survived and what you have created and what exists in the world because you made it exist. Most people who are over-present and over-available are not giving themselves away because they do not know the principle of scarcity. They are giving themselves away because at some level they do not believe that their time is worth protecting. Because the constant availability is the expression of a quiet internal belief that they need to be present to be valued, that if they are absent they will simply be forgotten, that the absence will confirm what they fear, which is that they were not particularly missed when they were gone. This fear is the thing to address, not by forcing absence and hoping the results disprove it, but by building the internal foundation that makes the fear irrelevant. By doing the work that makes you someone who cannot be easily replaced or forgotten. By developing the capability and the character and the specific quality of presence that, when it is present, is genuinely worth wanting when it is not. Because the power of absence is ultimately only as great as the value of the presence that precedes it. The absence of someone worth missing is powerful. The absence of someone forgettable is simply absence. The work of building a powerful absence is therefore not the work of managing your availability. It is the work of becoming someone whose presence is genuinely worth the anticipation that absence creates. That work is the actual work. The availability management, the early exits, the considered responses, the unexplained withdrawals, all of it is downstream from this. All of it only produces its intended effect when the underlying presence is actually worth desiring. So start there, not with the absence, with the presence, with the honest question of what you are building in the time that you are currently spending on availability, what you are becoming in the hours you are giving to people who have not earned them, what version of yourself is being developed in the space that constant accessibility is currently consuming. Build that version. Invest in that version. Give that version the time and the solitude and the focused engagement that it requires to become something genuinely worth missing. And then let the absence follow naturally from the fullness of that life. Not as strategy, as truth. The most powerful thing about genuine absence is that it is not a move. It is the natural byproduct of a person who has somewhere real to be, something real to build, a life that is actually happening rather than being held in permanent readiness for everyone else's convenience. When people feel the pull of your absence, when they reach toward the space you have left rather than taking your presence for granted, they are not responding to technique. They are responding to the reality of someone who has something going on that they cannot fully access, someone whose life extends beyond the portion of it they are permitted to see. Someone who is clearly in the process of becoming something that the available version of them was preventing them from becoming. That is the person people want around them, not the person who is always there. The person whose presence, when it arrives, carries the weight of everything they are doing when they are not there. Be that person, not by being absent, by being so genuinely present in your own life that your absence from everything else is simply the honest consequence of where your presence actually lives.